Hello! This is a basic model importing tutorial for Persona 5 Royal on Steam. This guide is going to go over the basics of importing and exporting a model alongside all the tools you need for that and installing said tools. The goal is that by the end of this video, you'll be able to give Joker a nifty hat. Do bear in mind this is a more basic guide, so things like custom physics, injecting making EPLs, animation editing, and actually rigging a full model won't be covered. These will be covered in a follow-up video I'm working on, but this should get you going, especially if you know what you're doing in Blender. Alright, now speaking of tools, the first one we're going to want to download, which all of these are of course linked in the description, is F5R's Blender Tools for GFS. This tool, debatably the most important, will actually allow you to import and export GFD engine models from Blender. So to download this, just click here on the zip and put it in a folder. I would recommend making a folder that has all of these in them somewhere. I put mine on an external hard drive. You could put yours in your downloads folder in your desktop, wherever you want to put it, just as long as you can easily get to it. Now, the next thing you're going to want to download is my GFD Blender presets. These presets enable you to actually properly export your models, because if you don't have a P5 material applied, it won't export your UVs, which UVs, of course, are very important to a model for how the texture is set up. For this one, you're going to click Code and click Download Zip, and then, of course, put in wherever you want to. I, again, have mine on an external hard drive. Next up, you're going to want to download my Now Tools tool. This tool is a Blender panel to help streamline the model importing and cleanup process for various games. However, it's specifically catered to P5R and other GFD games. For this one, you're going to want to go into the releases, go into the latest release, and download the zip and put it once again in your folder. The next thing you want to download is Death Chaos 25's fork of GFD Studio. This fork has fixes that the main repo of GFD Studio doesn't have, specifically BC7 support, which is very, very useful. YML material presets, max texture dumpers, max texture replacers, gap retargeting. Basically, get this one instead of the main fork. Now, the dependency for GFD Studio is .NET 5.0, so you're going to have to install this, and specifically when you go to the page here, you're going to want to go to the times 64 and times 86 and go through installing both of those. Next up, this tool that we're downloading here for Blender isn't directly connected to P5R, but it's extremely useful, and it's the Blender DDS add-on. This add-on will let you export BC7 DDS directly from Blender. That DDS BC7 file type is the highest quality DDS that P5R supports, which means you're going to get better looking textures. So you need to go here to releases, just like my Now Tools, and then download the windows.zip. You could also download the Mac OS or Linux, but I don't use either of those, so I'm going to download the Windows. All right, now one more quick thing before we actually get into Blender. This GFD Studio, we're not going to use it in this tutorial because we won't need to, but it's very useful for when you're doing more advanced things or want to check models quickly. So after you've installed .NET 0.5, go ahead and unpack GFD Studio. And once you've unpacked GFD Studio, go ahead and open it up. And you'll see this, just open a model up. It can be whatever model, it doesn't really matter. You can check textures, you can check materials. It's pretty much just a viewer for a GFD model. You can also load animations and retarget animations, but again, I'll get into that in the next video. Now we're going to get into the fun bit, actually going into Blender. Now we need to do a few things before we actually get started, and that is installing the add-ons that we have linked. Now to install an add-on, you're going to want to go up to Preferences, go into add-ons and click install, and then you're going to go, wherever and install this Blender DDS add-on, Blender Tools for GFS, and nowtools.zip. Now I already have these installed, so I'm going to go ahead and re-enable them. And when you have them enabled, they should look like this. When you install them, it'll initially pop up this menu. With them disabled, just click the checkbox and then they'll be enabled. And to double check you have everything enabled, Press N in the 3D viewport and then look for Now Tools. Go to File, Import, double check you see GFS, so .gme.gfs.gap, and then go into Texture Paint, hit N, and you should see the DDS add-on. If that's all there, then we can go ahead and go on to the next step. Now that we have all of the add-ons set up, we're going to have to do one little thing outside of Blender again, which is set up the asset library. Now go back into the folder where you installed all those links and downloaded everything, and you're going to see the GFD asset library main.zip. You're going to want to unzip this and put it wherever. And inside of it, which is the important part, inside of it is going to be a .blend. You're going to want to copy this link, open Blender back up, go into Edit, Preferences, and this time go down into File Paths into your asset libraries, plus press the plus button, paste that in here, and then hit Add Asset Library. What that is going to do is it's going to enable you to actually use my asset library. Now I've also linked the Niue asset library because that will also work for this, and I believe he has install instructions for his on there and uses for his, just like I do on my GitHub page. So you can use those if you like those a little better. And to actually use the asset library, go here at the bottom where the timeline is, and you're going to want to change this tab from timeline into asset browser. And then for mine, you're going to click this, go into whatever folder you have it named, and you'll see GFD and P5R is where you're going to be looking at materials. But first, we actually have to import the model and look at stuff there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is import Joker's model. Now, I'm going to assume you at least have a dump of P5R or have dumped it yourself. If you haven't, I will link the Beginner's Guide to Modding P5R in the description, which has that at the bottom section on how to actually get started on making mods. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and import it. You're going to go over here to File, then Import, then go down to GFS. Now, the models are stored in data.cpk, and then go to, shockingly, model, and then character, and then Joker is 0001. Now, in order to find the specific model you want to import, I want to import the Winter Shujin model that's used in battle. So I'm going to go here into the Shrine Fox wiki, and I'm going to go down, down, down into character models, and then 0001, which is the protagonist, which is Joker. And I'm going to scroll down. Now, this one is just the overworld model. This is not the one used in battle. So I want to find this model, but used in battle. So I keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. This one is for an awakening scene. It's not the one used in battle. And then down here, I see 152, and it's the Metaverse Winter Shujin uniform. So this is the one I want to import. So I'm going to go back into my folder, go to 152, and hit Import. Now, once it's imported, you're probably going to wonder, okay, where are the textures? This is just the model. So in order to see the textures, you go up here to the Shading tab, and then click Texture, and I recommend clicking Flat, and then you'll be able to preview the models. Now, there's some weird clipping going on here that you can see. It's very easy to fix that. Just click N, go to View, and make clip start 1 meter, and then it'll be normal. Joker is now in our scene, so you might be asking, Max, how do I give Joker a nifty hat? And that's what we're getting into right now. I'm going to give Joker the niftiest hat one could have. Vibe and Naoto. Now, this Vibe and Naoto model is from my P5IT mod, so it's using Morgana's bone set, hence the hellscape of a skeleton you see she's skinned to. My goal here is, of course, to get her on Joker's head like a hat. But it'd be a little awkward if she's just standing here, wouldn't it? So let's go ahead and make her sit. Typically, the process I'm doing here, going into pose mode, would be used to line up your model with the model you're rigging to. In this case, though, I'm just going to make her sit. So I'm going to go into the thigh bones. And I'm just going to rotate them up. A little lazy, a little scuffed, but it'll work for this. Then I'm going to go into the upper arm bones. and just rotate them down a little. Now, I could use the clavicle, which is what most people will assume you should do, but you'll notice if I use the clavicle, and this goes for most models, it's going to move, well, the shoulder too, and you're just trying to rotate the actual arm. So now we have Vibinato in the sit pose we want, but how are we going to actually keep her in it? You see, you'll notice something. If you go back into object mode and go into this, and then hit Alt-P, which is clearing a parent, which would separate it from the actual armature, and you hit clear and keep transformation, and then you go and try to parent it to the Joker model, it's going to go back into T pose. That's because the model's rest pose is still matching the skeleton. In order to fix this, we click the object, go back into the armature modifier here, click this window, and then click apply. Now you'll notice this is, even if we delete the entire bone set, the model's new rest pose. Now what we want to do is, of course, make her line up with Joker's head. Making her line up with Joker's head, or, just putting her where we want her, is really easy. Just click the model and then go over to these, tools on the side. You have move, you have rotation, you have scale. Now these do have keybinds, which you can see if you hover over them for a sec. For instance, G is move, rotate is R, and scaling is S. But I personally like to use the buttons because I'm a heathen, so I'm going to do that. Now, if you have another issue where the origin down here to move them is below or not lined up with the model, you can go up here to Object, Set Origin, and then Origin to Geometry. Now I'm going to move Vibinato up to Joker's head, scale her down a little bit, being small is good, and then just plop her right on his head. Now, with her on his head, we actually need to rig her to Joker's head. So what I'm going to do in order to test if rigging works is go click on the bone set here, go into File, and then go back to the GFS and import a gap. I'm going to go back into Joker's folder that we saw here, go into Battle, and then click BB0001_051.gap. That is the actual battle animations. Now, you're going to want to click Set Blender Scene to 30 FPS and make sure you have the proper armature selected. In this case, it would be 0001_152_00, and then import. Now, in order to test if the animations import correctly, click on the armature again, go down to here where we selected the asset library, and instead go to non-linear animation. This plugin stores animations in NLA strips. If you need more info about how those work or what they are, you can Google those. There's a plethora of guides. I'm not going to go over that right now because there's a lot to them. But for what you need to know, these different strips are the different animations. For instance, here is Joker's Showtime animation. And down here is Joker's Idol. So for now, I'm going to leave his idle selected just so I can test if Vibinato is working. I want to rig Vibinato to Joker's head. So I need to find the head bone. So I already know what it is, but to show you what it is, let's go down here. We're going to be looking for BIP01 head. So we're going to keep climbing our way up the hierarchy until we find it. And here it is, BIP01 head. So I'm going to copy the name here. Then I'm going to click Vibinato, hit Tab to go into Enter mode. Go down here into Object Data. You see there's already some vertex groups. I'm going to just delete those. Add a new one, BIP01 head. And with all of these selected, I'm going to hit Assign. Now I'm going to go into Modifiers, make a new Armature modifier, and then now she's attached to his head. Now that did move pretty fast, so I'm going to go a little more in depth about how that worked and what I did here, even though this is a basic guide. So if you would like to skip this because you already know how it works, I'll put a timestamp on screen now that you can skip to. For now though, let's go ahead and explain this. So I'll go ahead and basically undo what we've done. I'll delete the armature modifier and then I'll delete the vertex groups. So how weighting works, or how rigging works, is a vertice, which are these, or you could look at faces, or you could look at, oh wait, no, that, wait, no, that's edge. Or you could look at faces, or you could look at edges or vertices. I'm going to stick with vertices. One vertice can be weighted up to 100% of something. So it can be weighted like 25% to a neck and then 75% to a head, or it can be weighted to 10% of an arm, 40% to a wrist, 50% to a finger, that kind of stuff. You can kind of think of it as your actual skin over your skeleton and like how stuff moves. In this case, we're just rigging to one bone, so we don't need to worry about weighting in different different percentages or different strengths. All we do is hit Z, go into wireframe, shift select the entire thing, and then add that BIP01 head and assign it. So now every vertice is 100% rigged to the head bone. But if, for instance, I wanted to weight, I don't know, these bottom feet to the neck, here I could go BIP01 neck and assign them. They could move with the neck instead of the head. You see how they're disjointed? They're moving separately. That's because these are rigged to the neck as well. Now, one thing, when you click on a vertice here, you can go up to item, and you'll see how the weights, how they affect this vertice. You'll see both of these are 1. That's not allowed. They have to add up to 1. So one could be like 0.6 and one could be 0.4 or 60%, 40%, however you want to think about it. This is something that Now Tools will do for you. If you go down into Now Tools and hit normalize weights, now you'll notice it shifted because it normalized. And now that it's normalized, you can actually import it into P5. However, very obviously, this looks like shit, so I'm going to weight this entire thing once again to specifically the head bone. All right, so now we have the model rigged. We can see it. Everything's good. But we can't import it yet because we need to apply a P5R material. And this is where my asset library comes in. So first up, we need to go into image texture and we need to copy this. This is going to let us basically reapply the diffuse texture, which is the color. Some games call it a base texture, color texture, diffuse. It's whatever. It's the thing that is the base color. And we're going to go into, or back into Asset Browser, into P5R. And for this one, I would recommend just applying P5R Full Bright. Now, with the mesh selected, I go into shading and I see here the diffuse texture and I apply it. And now it's back. However, if we export this, the PNG isn't going to export with it because P5R doesn't support PNG. So we need to export a DDS of this PNG, which, once again, that add-on we installed earlier is going to help us out. Click the mesh, click the texture. You'll see it's here. Click N, then go to DDS. In custom properties, go here, go to BC7U norm, export selected image, go to wherever you imported your FBX from, and I'll just call it jokertoot.dds and export selected image. Now it's exported, so we're pretty much ready to go ahead and export the model. First up, though, we need to actually parent this to the armature. So it's with the armature here. Let me drag this down so it's a little easier visible. So take the body and then hold shift and it should go inside the armature. And then go here, go to export, go to GFS model, and then I'll just export joker2.gmd. Now I accidentally clicked out of it, but I got an error that said I exported a PNG instead of a DDS, even though you just saw that I exported a DDS. Sometimes when you export from this plugin, it will not automatically redirect this texture to the DDS. So you want to open up where you exported your DDS and then select it. And then you can now export your model. All right, so it looks like my model exported correctly. I am checking it in GFD Studio, and I'm going to go ahead and load an animation. And it looks good. Looks like it's moving with the head. Looks like everything's good. So now I want to test in game. So I'm going to go over how to actually create a Reloaded 2 mod. Now there is actually a link on the Reloaded 2 GitHub on how to make a mod and how to make everything right, but I'll just go over it here for simplicity's sake. So first up, you're going to want to go to Manage Mods, and you're going to want to hit New. Now, the Persona modding community usually will use P5R PC dots and then put your category. In this case, it would be skins and then dot, I don't know, Joker hats. Now, don't use this ID because a bunch of other people might use it. And if two people have the same unique mod ID, it's going to screw up the end user's Reloaded. So ideally, I'm naming it Joker Hat because nobody has used it of mods I've downloaded, but you know, you could use Joker Hat, a bunch of numbers, or Joker Fancy Hat, you know, whatever. I'm just going to do Joker Hat here though. And here's where you input your stuff. So Joker Hats, author, Mudkip, version 1.0, description, Booga Booga. And dependencies, this is the important part. You want to set P5R Essentials as your dependency. Then here's where you could link your GitHub, but I'm not going to get into that. And then for here, you want to set up Persona 5 Royal. Now when you go into your P5R and you look up Joker Hats, here is Joker Hat. Now for the file paths, you're going to want to go New and then Folder, P5RE Essentials, and then CPK, and then a random folder name. I'll just name mine Hat. And then model, character, 0001. And I don't actually remember the exact name of Joker model, so it's 152, but I'm just going to copy this here and then go into my Joker GMD here and then cuts and then paste. And now I'll go ahead and see you in game. Now, Vibe Naoto is kind of her own light source because I forgot I screwed up my local asset library when I was testing some stuff and overwrote a couple materials. So right now she's just a literal star. But as you can see, the model still does work in game. If you use that material on your own copy of asset library, you're not going to have that issue. It's like the same one you see on the GitHub instead of my screwed up one here. If you have any issues, you can feel free to join the Persona modding Discord, which I'll link in the description, because I probably will take a while to respond to YouTube comments. You can also DM me, but I can't guarantee I'll get back to you pretty fast on there either. But at the end of the day, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy importing your models.